In the 1940s, a psychologist by the name of Abraham Maslow coined a term you've probably heard called self-actualization, which is the highest level of psychological and emotional development where one's personal potential is fully realized. Upon Maslow's death, however, it was discovered in his journals and in his papers that he was working on a different model that had an even higher level of actualization that he called self-transcendence. And that would be a state where your potential is nearly limitless. You have gone so far that you are almost connected to the infinite. And so that got me thinking, and I began wondering whether there were a series of actionable steps. If someone came to me and they said, Rick, what do I need to do? Which steps do I need to take in my personal life to become self-actualized or to put me on a path toward transcendence? And so I made a list of a whole bunch of things, and then I whittled that down to 6 items, 6 things, 6 actionable steps. These are the 6 things that I think every man should be doing. Number 1, you have to get fit. You have to get healthy. There's no excuse. Fitness has such profound carryover into the totality of your life. Someone who's fit is going to have better cognitive function, is going to have better performance across a range of mental tasks. They're going to be more energetic. It's going to help you be more relaxed. It's a stress reliever. It's going to help you be more healthy, lower levels of heart disease, et cetera, et cetera. And being fit is actually something that will drastically increase your self-confidence as a man. If you're someone that lacks a little bit of confidence, I can tell you this, if you're a guy that has some degree of muscles, you're fit, you're lean, you're healthy, when you walk into a room and there are men and women in that room, the men will always notice. Some men will be jealous of that, and the women will all notice as well. It's a fantastic confidence boost, and I don't know of any successful man that I consider successful, that I respect, that I admire, who doesn't take their fitness seriously. These guys go to the gym regularly, they lift weights, and they get strong. There's a saying by Mark Ripito that I love, that he's a pretty well-known strength coach, and he said, strong people or strong men are harder to kill than weak men, and they're more useful in general. And I love that because it's true. They're harder to kill and they're more useful. You will be a more useful, more dynamic, more actualized person just by the fact that you are fit. Along with fitness comes health. You have to be healthy, which means you have to eat correctly. And personally, I think that a lot of being healthy just comes down to eliminating the crap. Stop eating crap. If you're drinking Mountain Dew, if you're drinking Monster energy drinks, if you're going to Starbucks to drink a caramel macchiato, don't do it. Why are you doing that? This is just pure sugar. Sugar is highly addictive. It's highly destructive. It's terrible for you. You shouldn't be doing that. In addition, if you're eating a lot of packaged foods, if you go to the grocery store and you shop in that middle section, which is where all the packaged foods are, these foods are terrible for you. It's what Rob Wolf calls hyper-palatable foods, foods that have been engineered in the laboratory to be addictive, right? And you can always tell with those foods because you look at the ingredient list and it looks like it was designed by a chemist, and it was. These foods are designed to be very, very addictive, and they have a high carbohydrate content. They tend to have a lot of sugar. They tend to have a lot of processed ingredients, and they're just not good for you. So probably the best thing you can do to get healthy is shop on the perimeter of the grocery store. That's where the fruits and the vegetables and the meats and the proteins and the better stuff is for you. So that's a big part of getting healthy. If you want to go deeper, I recommend Rob Wolf's books. He's a friend of mine, but he's a genius. He has a book called Wired to Eat, which is phenomenal. And he's got a book called The Paleo Solution, and it's phenomenal. And you really, in my opinion, you can't do better nutritionally than those resources. Getting healthy, I think, also has a mental component. What you ingest in your mind is also a huge part of being healthy. If you're just plugged into the matrix, watching social media, watching, TV, just filling your mind with, entertainment that has no nutritional value, then you are not going to be someone that is meeting their potential. You need to unplug from all that. You need to stop consuming crap, consuming it internally when you eat food and consuming it mentally. You got to stop the porn. You have to just clean your act up. That is a huge part of being fit and being healthy. And every successful guy that I know fills their mind only with things that enhance their potential. Number 2, learn to fight. Learning to fight is critically important for a man. And by the way, this list is not ordered in any particular order. I think these items are all important, but we started with health and fitness, and I think learning how to fight is a huge component to being fit, to being capable, to being healthy. Now, you might say to me, why should I learn to fight? I live in a peaceful society. The odds of me getting into a fight are very, very low. And really, you're missing the point. Because learning a martial art is, you'll get self-defense skills, but to me, those are secondary to the primary benefit. The primary benefit is you'll become more resilient. You'll become more capable. You'll become stronger mentally, stronger physically. You'll become someone that can problem solve dynamically. You'll become tougher. You'll become someone who can operate within chaos. As Glenn Hegstead, the phenomenal martial artist, says, the only thing that really matters is what you can do within chaos. And that's what a martial art will teach you. You have to stick with a martial art where they spar. Jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, judo, sambo, martial arts like that, where you're actually sparring, you're actually testing yourself against your training partners, because that is what's going to really teach you to be capable, to be dynamic. It's going to humble you. It's going to teach you to weather adversity. It's going to teach you to keep showing up even though you are getting your butt kicked every single night. And so I can't recommend learning how to fight more for a man. I think it's critical. It's just one of those things that if you're a guy, you have to learn how to take care of yourself. And if you're a single man who's looking for a girlfriend, or you're in a relationship with a mate, I can tell you that women truly admire and appreciate being with a man that can take care of himself, being with a man who's fit, who's healthy, who's capable, who knows how to fight. It's mandatory, in my opinion. It will shatter your ego. So many men walk around with this inflated sense of who they are. But when you step on the mat, it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is how capable you are on the mat. You can be a brain surgeon in the real world with accolades and with the respect of the world, but nobody cares when you step on the mat. When you step on the mat, the only thing that matters is how good you are on the mat, and you will be humbled and you'll become far more capable through that process. You have to learn to fight. Number 3, you have to become interesting. The average man today is utterly boring. The average guy today is a shell of a creature who goes to work every day, comes home at night, pops open a beer, and sits and watches mindless TV for 6 hours. There is nothing that will kill a relationship more than being boring. Women hate boring guys. There's no reason to be boring in this day and age where we literally have all the information in the world at our fingertips. So the question is, how do you become interesting? Well, the way you become interesting, in my opinion, is to become interested. You have to become interested in the world around you. It's a big world out there. It's a fascinating place. There's so much to learn. There is so much to do. You don't even have to leave your house, and you can learn so much about the world. You can learn about history. You can learn about philosophy. You can learn science. You can learn, you can develop interesting hobbies. There's just a world out there to learn. So there's really no excuse to becoming interesting. It's easy to become interesting today because the resources are freely available. One of the ways in which you can become far more interesting, in my opinion, and I think it's mandatory for the successful man, is you have to read. Reading has become a lost art in the modern world. I think Western civilization is in decline, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that. And I think that one of the indicators of that decline is that we are in a post-literate society. Literally nobody reads anymore. I find myself reading less. I read less than I used to. Prior to the internet, I was an insane, voracious reader that read constantly, and these days I have to discipline myself. It's a little harder to discipline myself to read more. Let me tell a little story. So back in the 90s, I worked as a recording engineer. I got a degree in audio engineering after my music years, and then I moved to Hollywood and I got a job in a recording studio, a busy recording studio that was doing music for television shows. It was doing music for films. It was doing lots of commercials. It was doing a lot of sound effects editing, a lot of sound design for theme park attractions. It was doing a lot of character voice recording for Disney. It was doing some albums. It was just one of these busy music studios. The guy that owned the studio was a guy named Andy. Andy was probably the best conversationalist of anybody I've ever met. He was a fascinating guy that always had interesting things to say, no matter the topic, no matter what people were talking about. He always had fascinating insights into that thing. And at the studio, we had a list of who's who walking through the door. There were high-level Hollywood executives walking through the door, producers, there were artists, there were high-level actors and actresses and voice actors, and everybody loved Andy. Everybody loved talking to Andy because he always had interesting things to say. He could just keep a conversation going endlessly. The thing about Andy is I don't think I ever saw him walk into the studio in the morning on his way to work without a book under his arm, or without a book and a newspaper under his arm, or without a book and a newspaper and a journal that he was writing in. He was engaged in this constant, relentless pursuit to learn and to better himself and to become more knowledgeable. We see those commercials with the most interesting man in the world, the Corona beer commercials with the most interesting man in the world. Well, let me tell you, Andy was, to me, one of the most interesting men in the world because he was a voracious reader that never stopped bettering himself. So we can all take a lesson from Andy. I've tried to become Andy, and I think you would do well to become like Andy. Number 4, you have to become a relentless seeker of truth. A truth seeker internally. You have to be willing to look at yourself for who you really are, no better, no worse, and learn to accept yourself for who you are. And in seeking the truth about yourself, identify those things that you need to better about yourself. There's a famous study by 2 researchers, one named Dunning, the other named Kruger, the Dunning-Kruger effect as it's called. And what they found was that the average person always will rate themselves above average. The average person thinks they're better looking than they are. The average person thinks they're more capable than they are. The average person thinks they're more intelligent than they are, and so on. And this is a bell curve. We're talking about the average person. There are people on the end of the bell curve bell curve that live in a delusion bubble. They've constructed this entirely false narrative of who they are. In my opinion, it's impossible to be a successful, self-actualized person if there are elements about yourself that you are lying to yourself about. You have to be relentlessly, brutally honest and be willing to confront those things that need work and fix those things. And it starts with truth. Now, some people construct a false narrative because they have self-esteem issues, or they feel bad about themselves, or they tend to be, have a lot of a negative mindset and so on. But I think in order to solve all that, you have to be willing to tell the truth about yourself. And this can be a really difficult thing. Make yourself absolutely willing to seek and follow the truth wherever that truth leads, both internally and externally, because there are a lot of lies out there in the world, especially if you're plugged into the matrix. And accept the truth, because the truth is the truth regardless of how you feel about the truth. And it's only in doing that that you will be able to realize your full potential. Number 5, you have to fix your bullshit. What do I mean by that? We all have dysfunctional patterns. We have dysfunctional thought patterns. We have dysfunctional emotional patterns. We have dysfunctional behavioral patterns. It's almost unavoidable that we will not have something in our life that needs to be fixed. Some of us more than others. Maybe you were raised by an alcoholic who was abusive. Maybe you had physical abuse. Maybe you were the victim of emotional abuse. This was me when I grew up. I grew up in an environment where there was a malignant narcissist who did profound psychological damage to me when I was a child. Maybe you have self-esteem issues. Maybe you were bullied. Maybe you just, for whatever reason, you feel bad about yourself. Whatever that is, we all have things that we have to fix. And part of becoming a man, part of becoming a happy, healthy, emotionally balanced man is to find your crap and deal with your crap and fix it, right? And this has been much of my journey into adulthood. And I'm here to tell you that it's possible to get through all that, because your past doesn't have to be your future reality. You can make a choice that your past is in the past, and moving forward, it's going to be a new reality. And I'm not saying that you don't have these emotional triggers that happen throughout your life that sometimes can show dysfunction or bring that dysfunction to the surface. But the key is to learning how to identify those things. I mentioned truth a minute ago. You have to become truthful. And in that truth, you have to be willing to identify all the areas where there's dysfunction and then figure out how to get past those things. It's like being a sculptor. You look at some of the great sculptures, Michelangelo's David, for example. These are artists that will take a block of material. Maybe it's marble, maybe it's bronze, maybe it's wood, and they'll begin chiseling away everything that isn't the essence of that thing that they're creating. And they start with the big chunks, right? They need to rough it out. Well, those big chunks are the big areas of dysfunction. You have to become a little bit like a scientist, observing yourself. Imagine this observer everywhere you go, who observes you in your interactions at work, with your coworkers, with your boss, your interactions at home. It observes how you think. It observes the things you consume, the things that you think about, the ways that you behave, and begins identifying patterns that are unhealthy. And that is the chiseling away of those things that need to be stripped away so that you can become the essence of who you are destined to be. And that process is never ending, but it becomes more fine-tuning over the years. Whereas initially it's the big chunks of the sculpture that get hacked away. Eventually, you're just shaving off little things. You become very attuned. Maybe you have a disagreement with your wife and you notice that you react in a certain way that's unhealthy. Okay, there's something to chisel off right there. Throughout your life, you observe these things. And so I think that in order to become a transcendent or a self-actualized or a successful person who's emotionally balanced, who is fulfilling your maximum potential, you have to eliminate the crap. That's part of the hard work that you have to do as an adult, as a man, and get after it sooner than later. Because I can tell you, I am pretty healthy emotionally these days. I came from a horrifically abusive environment, but yet today I'm happy, I'm emotionally healthy, I'm balanced, I'm not reactive, I'm calm, I like myself. I can tell you that your past doesn't have to be your current reality or your future reality. And so a big part of becoming a successful man is, as I said in the last segment, learning to be truthful so you can identify the areas of dysfunction, but then fixing those things and learning to eliminate and get over all of this crap in your life. Number 6, you got to find your mission and you have to begin pursuing it relentlessly. Every successful man I know has a purpose, has something that puts a raging fire in their belly, a passion, something they are just relentlessly passionate about that they pursue. You have to find that thing. And it doesn't have to necessarily be one thing. Sometimes it's multiple things. And it doesn't necessarily have to be one thing that sustains you through your entire life. I've kind of reinvented my life every decade or so, and I've found I'm the kind of person that tends to find a new passion periodically, and I chase it relentlessly. Other people find one thing that they do throughout their entire life. So there's no rule here, but the bottom line is that you need something that you're absolutely passionate about, something that you think about the moment you wake up in the morning, and it becomes the last thing you think about as you go to bed at night. So how do you find your mission? How do you find your passion? Well, I can't tell you how to find it, but I can tell you how not to find it. The way you don't find it is by staring out the window, asking yourself, what do I want to do with my life? That's not the path. Every time I've done that, it's just caused me to become less inspired, less creative, less motivated, less passionate. A direction, a mission, a passion comes from doing, not from waiting. You have to begin doing things, right? We talked about becoming an interesting person a while ago. Finding your passion is an extension of that process of becoming an interesting person, because it means you're exploring. And it's through that exploration that you will generally begin to get insights into the things you want to do and insights into a direction. And a lot of times that direction can come from things you're already interested in. Let's say you enjoy mountain biking. Well, go get a job in a bike shop and learn how to work on bikes. And then maybe the next thing that happens is you get an idea for a type of bicycle to build or a type of bike component. Next thing you know, you're in the bike manufacturing business. And so a lot of times people find their passion as a result of simply following the things that they are interested in. But you have to have some purpose in your life. And by the way, it doesn't have to be grandiose. Your mission in life doesn't have to be to save the whales or to, it doesn't have to be anything big. It can be a small thing. There's nothing wrong with your life's purpose being something small, right? Something that interests you, and being willing to relentlessly and honestly pursue that thing without consideration for how other people might react to you doing that thing. A lot of people are paralyzed by what they think their friends and their acquaintances are going to say. There are a lot of naysayers out there. A lot of people will shoot down your idea. Don't listen to those people. You have to be willing to simply walk away from friendships if you need to, but you're on your own path. Be willing to put yourself out there and follow relentlessly whatever your passion is, regardless of what anyone might think of it, because ultimately this is you and this is your life. And every successful person that I know has something that they are just absolutely relentlessly passionate about. And so you need to have that thing as well.